All right. Yeah, like I said, hey, just got had to do a couple little tune-ups real quick, but we are back. We are back with Chris Carson and joined with us by Andrew Greenberg, where we're going to be playing around with some content. I think Chris is going to try to do an RTS game tonight. We're going to try, see what happens.
Yeah,
So,
Andrew he's always like, gee, we got an hour. Why don't we make a fully fledged multi online role playing game? I'm like, can you scale it back a little bit? And he's like, okay, let's do an RTS.
all
So we'll give it a shot. We'll see what we can do.
right, Chris, the show's yours. Take it away.
All right. So I guess the first thing we need to do is start a new app. So here's Fusion. For those of you not familiar with Fusion, this is Clickteam Fusion. It's a tool for writing software, games, apps, whatever. The very first thing every new user needs to do is go File, New. If you can't do that, then programming is probably not for you.
I can
But for
do
the
it. I
rest
can
of
do it.
you, you can do it? That's
I can
great.
do it.
Excellent. How about you, Andrew? You got this? You got File, New?
Is there a tutorial on that?
Uh, yes, probably. There probably actually is. So I'm going to change the resolution to 1136 by 640. It's going to ask me if I want to modify my frame. Fusion apps are broken down by frames. We're going to do everything in probably one frame today, but you can have multiple frames. An example of a multiple frame game is something I'm working on here called Get Wrecked. You can see I've got a logo frame, two logo frames, my title frame, my game engine, a loss frame, and then of course, the bread and butter, the ads frame. But that's how frames work. So we'll call this one Andrew's RTS frame. Okay. And then, of course, he had suggested some Santa-themed affair. So we're going to grab a backdrop, a quick backdrop. We're going to change that to a motif. We're going to edit it, and obviously, we're going to get rid of the X. We're going to get some blue colors here, I think. Try to make a kind of an icy kind of feel to it. So then I'll go here and 10. Let's see if that's big enough. Yeah, that'll work. I'll just put a couple circles here. Nothing too major. Just to give off the impression. Paint a happy little tree, basically. There you go. It gives us a kind of an ice texture. Then we position it in the top corner and then resize it to fill the frame. Now in Fusion, for those of you that are not familiar, I want that a little darker. Sorry. That's what happens when you want to be perfectionist. There you go. That'll work. So most objects in Fusion that you use are active objects. Active objects are collidable, testable, programmable. As you saw, I pulled it out of the object selection dialog, which, for those of you not familiar with Fusion, here are some of the objects. Every object has different functions. And in fact, in the manager, which lists all the available online objects, these are ones that you could download and install. Again, all having different function. Active being the most popular. Active objects are made up of a series of animations. And we're going to create a little Santa guy. I'm going to try to, at least. Santa has a red hat, last I checked. So let's give him a kind of a red hat here. And then he's got to have a little white fluff ball at the top, right? Would you guys agree?
That sounds good.
All right. So we'll go with that. Might have to make this object this bigger once we're done. And then he needs a rotund face, from what I understand. All those cookies. Probably a little too rotund. That's okay. It's our Santa. We can paint him how we want.
That's right.
A happy little Santa. I've always wanted to do a series of videos that would be just like if you were watching Bob Ross, but only video game. The only problem is I can't find an analogy for beating the devil out of your brush, which is the best part of a Bob Ross video. Would you agree?
I'll have to think on that one.
No. Delete. You ever had to just kill code like a monster? It's all gone. I hate it all.
Yeah, but what? Clean the build. Clean the build.
There you go. Clean the build.
Clean the build. That could be it. Now we got to give him a coat. Yeah. It's going to be a horrible Santa. Everyone be prepared for it. Disclaimer, I'm not an artist. If you haven't figured that out already. We affectionately call it programming art. And we'll just give them a little thing here and some buttons, and I don't know. That's the Santa you guys are getting.
The only thing better than when programmers do their own art is when programmers do their own voiceover.
Oh, that's true. That's very true. We're not going to put anybody through that. All right, so there we go. We're going to call him Santa Guy.
Not Satan.
All right.
Sorry.
Now, another thing we need being in RTS, we need a selection grid. We need to create a selection grid. So what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this active objects flat screen, the diamond rather. And we're going to create one. This is going to be the most detailed graphic you see today. Boom, done. Okay. That's amazing. Look at that. All right, and we're going to call this the selector. And then we're going to get some events. So for those of you that have never seen Fusion, Fusion breaks down programming, the if-then proposition, into conditions and actions. My first condition this go-around is going to be if the mouse clicks, a single click, and if he does, then we're going to set the position of the selector to X mouse and to Y mouse. Boom. So that means when I run it, it's going to put it wherever I last click. And for those of you who have 4K monitors, maybe you can see the green dot. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to say repeat while the mouse key is held down, and we're going to set the scale, the X scale, to whatever X mouse currently is, minus the position of where we last placed the selector. And we don't really need scale because we don't need the quality because it's just a flat color. And then we do the same thing with the Y dimension. We say Y mouse, which returns the current position of the mouse vertically. And then we retrieve from the selector its last Y coordinate. And then we'll go with, again, 0 quality. And if I did it right, now we've got a selection grid. Not too bad. Now, I don't think it goes in reverse. Let's see. Nope, it won't go in reverse. We could do that, but we'd have to do a little more coding. Basically, if you wanted to do it in reverse, you'd have to have, as this is X and Y in the positive, you'd have to detect if it's in the negative and then rotate the object depending on how many of the negatives. Is it negative Y? Is it negative X? Is it negative X and Y? And then you'd have to rotate the square. And just because that sounds cool, let's go ahead and do it. So we're going to say we'll actually retrieve the formula here, simple math formula, and then we're going to go here, and we're going to compare to general values. We're going to say is X mouse minus X selector greater than 0, asking if it's a positive integer, and then we're going to grab the Y. Did I grab Y? I hope I did. Insert, compare to general values. I grabbed Y greater than 0, and that would be for our positive scaling. And then if I've done it right, we do this, and we'll just say let's go negative, so lower than 0. So then we would want to set angle to 180. Let's see if that worked. So this works, and now, oh, So we're close. It's doing something weird. I wonder what my... Maybe because I haven't returned the 0 angle. I bet you that's it. Yes. And now I just got to figure out why it's not flipping. Debug time. X mouse minus. So when you're debugging, sometimes you got to dig in and see exactly what's going on. One way you can do that is make your own debug console. So we'll grab a text object to display our results. Make it something readable. Then we'll go always. Change the alternate string. Convert the value into a string. We'll run it. So that is definitely a positive number. And that's a negative number. But it doesn't seem to want to flip. Interesting. All right. So we know that that's true. Maybe we should also check the Y. Any questions so far in the, because I can't see it, guys.
Okay, no, not yet. So, yeah, everybody in chat, if you have any questions, be sure to put them up on chat, and we will tell Chris or ask Chris for you.
Exactly, and if you just want to say, what the heck are you doing, man? Go right ahead, slap that in there. Okay, so it's returning the values correctly. So we know that this should be triggering, and another way to test it just to make sure is we could slap this always up here. Then we could put this down here so that it only prints out to our string the return when this is triggered. And then we could set this to just be null. So it's going to be null until I reverse it. So we know that our conditions are working, our ifs are working. It's the actions that aren't. So what we need to do then is, let's test that. Let's go ahead and delete the set angle. Let's see what we get. Now we should get, when I reverse it, the same dimension square. And we're not. Oh, I know what the deal is. I know exactly what the deal is. See, debugging is so much fun. So we set the angle back to 180. Now, if we pay attention, I'm setting the scale based on that formula. Once the number goes negative, I'm asking it to scale it negatively. Things don't scale negatively well, right? So what we need to do is we need to take that value, and then we need to make it a, what is the ceiling? Absolute value. We'll go with absolute value. That should do it. So let's go edit the other one. So what that will do is it'll take the negative number, and an absolute value converts it to a positive integer. Cross your fingers.
Got a question. This engine does make web games, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. If you want to expand on that a little bit, like, doesn't the free version come with the web install?
That's an excellent question. Thanks for asking. So if we take a look here at our export modules, we've got Flash, iOS, Android, HTML5, UWP is the Universal Windows platform, and Mac. So Flash and HTML5 would be what you'd predominantly use. The free version, even the free version, allows you to export out to HTML5. There are several limitations in the free version, which we can take a peek here in the version comparison. So you're missing all these functionalities. And there's also limitations in the number of frames and events that you can have. But HTML5 comes with limited in both all versions of just the standard product. Or you could pick up the HTML5 exporter itself which gives you a ton of other functionality and allows you to add objects and do a bunch of other stuff. So go to clickteam.com, and right here under export tabs, you can read about it. And then this is a great link right here, the version comparison link, which will explain more to you as far as what each one does. If you could let me know, Brian, if that answers your question, that would be great.
Will do as soon as he says something.
So back to our outstanding demonstration. We solved the bug, at least the display bug. So we're stretching correctly there. But now you'll notice that it's stretching up because I rotated it 180 degrees. So now we've got to figure out how to mirror it down. And I think what we're going to have to do is reposition it. So what we're going to have to do, this is going to be fun. This is why I like to do these tangents, because we actually learn more than me just giving you canned stuff. So what we're going to have to do is inside the selector object, we're going to have to declare two variables. We'll call it initial x and initial y. And so when I click, I create that dot, that one spot, and then I scale. When I go into the reverse, just make it -x, it pops it up here. And the reason it does that is because I've rotated the object 180 degrees, but it's still scaling on the same dimensions. So what I need to do is I need to reposition this top right corner to match the origin x position, which we should be able to do with a little bit of math, just a smidgen of math. So we're going to set the position, the y coordinates to, let's see, we want to go with the initial y plus initial y. Actually, it's going to be, just so I don't have to type it all over again, we'll go ahead and grab it right here. And then we go to here, set y position plus, I think that'll do it. Let's take a look. Let's see how badly I screw it up. Okay, so it's trying to do something. Isn't debugging fun? So it's still not. We're close, though. Gentlemen, we're close. All right. Y mouse minus Y selector. That's correct. Plus initial Y. That should also be correct. Don't know why it's not working. Try it one more time. Oh, I know why. Because I'm actually basing the Y position off of Y, which is changing when I set the Y position. So maybe if we select that to value initial Y. But the other thing I remembered we didn't do is I'm setting the positions. I'm physically setting the position of the object, but I'm not storing that data. So I need to set initial X to X mouse when we do the user click left button. And we need to set the Y value to Y mouse. And if we look at that, that looks correct. Still good. Oh, it's doing something. We're close. Isn't this exciting? Who's excited? I don't hear any excitement from you guys.
Oh, I'm excited. I love it.
Yeah, you should be. You should be excited.
I am. 99 bugs in the code.
All right. Absolute. So we'll try swapping that out. Oh, we're so close. I can taste it. Oh, did something there. Look at that, it's kind of working. That's weird. All right. That should remain the same. Oh, but you know what? It's not going to, because this number is consistently changing. So we got to go back to initial y. Ta-da!
Woohoo!
So now the reason why it's popping down is because the y position's changed, but I'm not using initial y anywhere else. So if I changed all this to initial y and change this to initial y, we might have a winner, which means we could then go and do the other coordinates, but I'm sure everyone wants me to get on with...
Actually, I would love for you to explain how you did that without any of the debugging. Just do it again as if you didn't have to debug anything, if you'd be so kind.
Oh, of course. All right, I want to make sure it works right, though. There's still an issue. And then we'll do that for Mr. Andrew. Okay. Y mouse, initial y, set angle to 0. Oh, okay. So this needs to go here, and then we need to set the position to initial y. Okay. So Andrew, do you want me to recode the whole thing? Is that what you'd like me to do?
Yeah, if you could walk through what you're doing as if you didn't have to debug it.
Okay. All right. So the issue was, and we will go ahead and hide these for now. All right. So we start with a dot. So this active object, or sprite in common programming parlance, is a single pixel dot. It's 1 by 1 with its hotspot and action points, which are pins, if you will, set to 0, 0, which is occupied by the spot itself. Now, what we're doing is we want to make a selection object. So what we need to do to select is we need to start by assigning and setting the position of the object when the mouse is clicked. The user interface, of course, is the mouse. And so when the user clicks, right, then we're going to go ahead and we're going to set the X position to X mouse. And then we're going to set the Y position to Y mouse. Okay, but then we need to store some data. So earlier I created 2 variables inside the object. So this instance of this object has declared initial X and initial Y as variables. And I'm going to store that same data in the values, in the variables. So we're going to put X mouse for initial X. And then we're going to say for Y mouse, we're going to say for initial Y, we're going to say Y mouse. Oh, and we totally did that wrong. So we remove that. Set initial Y to Y mouse. So what's happening is whenever we click the mouse, I'm setting the position of the selector. It's 1 pixel object to the position of the mouse, and then I'm storing those initial position as a value in 2 variables. And if we were to click, you get a dot that shows up. Now, of course, we need it to drag out when we're selecting. So what we can do is then additionally add repeat when the mouse key is pressed. And then we're going to ask if by comparing 2 general values, we're going to ask if X mouse minus initial X is greater than 0. And I'll explain in a little bit why we're doing that. And then I'm going to copy this, and I'll change the X to Y in both cases. The reason we're doing that is when we drag, if we were to think of this as a, in fact, let's just for giggles, let's grab backdrop, backdrop. If we were to think of our click zone as a grid, a 4-quadrant grid, so if I were to click right here, then the dot appears in the center of this grid. And when I drag out from the dot this way, I'm dragging the mouse, and the X and Y position of the mouse is a positive integer in comparison to the center point. But if I were to drag in this direction, the Y position is still a positive value, but the X position becomes negative. Up here, both values become negative. And up here, Y is negative, but X is still positive. Now, the reason why that's an issue is because when I write the next bit of code, which we'll do here, we're going to set the scale, the X scale, to X mouse minus the stored value of initial X. And then the second variable that it asked for was quality. We can leave it at 0 because it's a solid color. And then we got to scale the Y the same way by saying Y mouse minus the stored initial Y. And we'll say 0 for quality. So when I drag, I get this square, right? Rectangle, whatever. Because it's a 1 pixel. The distance is measured in pixels. So it's a 1-to-1 relationship depending how far away my drag is from the original click. Now, but the problem is if I were to go in this direction, I can't scale negatively. You can only scale an object positively. So we have to somehow trick it into rotating and repositioning. So what we do then is we ask if the, still if it's repeating, but is this value now negative? Is it lower than 0? So what we're going to try to do now is be able to make it go into this quadrant here, which would be negative Y. So we're asking if that Y mouse versus initial Y, Y mouse minus initial Y, is that less than, I'm sorry, X, is X mouse minus initial X less than 0? If it is, then we're in that second quadrant. So what we need to do is, in addition to setting the scale, right, as we did up here, we're going to need to set these to an absolute value. Absolute value, of course, converts any number into a positive. And we got that there. And, you know, it doesn't hurt. We could uniform the entire thing and make all of the code absolute, because in any case, anytime we're scaling, we need a positive number. So I'm looking for calculations, absolute, paste in. And just doing that, it'll still push it out. But now we've got to rotate the object. So what we do is we say here, every angle in an active object is defaulted to 0. So in our positive quadrant, quadrant 1, we'll make sure that the angle is the initial setting. But on this angle, we're going to set it to 180. So now it's going to appear up here. And the reason why it's going to do that is because we've rotated the object 180 degrees. So it's mirroring itself up. So the next step is we have to take the square and calculate what this position of this top corner is and move it so that it's down here. So what we do is we then set the position, set the Y coordinate, and we start with the initial Y that we stored, and then we add to it whatever the absolute value of y mouse minus initial y. And the reason why we stored, again, initial y and initial x is because we need to know, stored, hardwired, what that initial click was. Because as I manipulate the y position of the object, the position itself changes. So if we were to just read instead of initial y and used the current y coordinate, that number is consistently changing depending on the data, and we would get apparent results. So by using a stored value, we're able to make sure that it is sticking right where it's supposed to. So let's try it. Let's see if I got it right. Cross your fingers. Ta-da. Now, we have one last step, because when I go back, when I drag back, it's going to pop it back down to here. And the reason it does that is because if we look at the code closely, I'm setting the y position, and I'm jumping it down to compensate for the angle change. But when I go back the other direction, I haven't bumped it back up. So we need to copy that, move it here, remove the adjustment and set it just to initial y. And when we run it, we should be good. Now, seeing as Andrew had us do it that far, let's go ahead and finish the other two quadrants. So we'll go here, paste that, and now instead of is x negative, we'll keep x positive, and we'll ask if y is negative. So we're going to have a very similar thing, except we're only going to go 90 degrees. And we're not going to change the y position. I don't believe we'll be changing the x position. Let's remove it and see what happens, just so we can get a tail. So now we should be pushing up, and you see that it rotates, but it's scaling wrong. We've got to transpose it. So not a problem. So let's just look at it again. I drag out like that. I push up, and you can see that it's the scaling is reversed, isn't it?
Yep.
So I'm wondering if I just go like this, that bad boy here, I wonder if that's a solution. Let's see. Look at that. One quadrant to go. So the next quadrant is us charting into negative territory. So both x and y should be returning a negative value when moving into this quadrant. And we know that it's going to be 180, 90. Let's go with 270. I'm getting this wrong. I know that I am, but that's all right. Okay, so very similar result. The only difference is we take this, put it down here, and we subtract. And I'm thinking that'll do it. There you go.
Woo.
Now, what I did, I at some point, just for disclosure's sake, I'm actually deploying two different methods here, and it still works. And sometimes they say when you're coding, if it works, it works. But I would probably go back and make sure that it's uniform to one format, because here, when I'm setting the angle, instead of repositioning, which I should have repositioned on X, I actually swapped the scale values. So it's two different methods, but in the end it works. So now we can select stuff. Yay! Now in order to select stuff, we need things to select. So let's grab our Santa guy, and let's give him a new animation, or rather a new direction, where we're going to outline him with a highlight. And we'll just go with yellow. because why not? So I'll just quickly draw a yellow outline on Santa. Has anyone developed a new question since?
No, I haven't seen any more questions pop up in chat yet. But everybody, you hear it. If you have any questions or anything at all, referring to Fusion, please go ahead and ask in chat, and we'll.
I have a question for the viewers. Am I putting them to sleep?
I don't think so. Everybody's still here and chat's interacting.
If someone's falling asleep, let me know.
Nope, nobody's asleep.
Okay, so Brian is brewing digital coffee for those of you
in my
that are getting sleepy.
Coffee cup.
That's right. Order now. Order now. So now I'm creating multiple instances of Santa Guy. So they're all the same object, but they're just different instances of them. And now we got to check for overlap. So we remove all this previous gobbledygook.
By the way, what you did there was a pretty cool function for those who don't know Fusion at all. How you basically commented out the code. That was a neat new feature. I don't know. Yeah, you kind of did it quick. So.
Yeah, deactivation. Hold on, let me finish this comment because commenting is another important function. Unless you're one of those elitist professors who think your code should be so well written that anybody can look at it and doesn't require comments. But for the rest of us, comments are the order of the day. Selection box. So yeah, in Fusion, if you're testing something, sometimes you may want to say, well, I know this is doing some sort of result, but it's not quite what I want, but I don't want to lose what I wrote. So you can copy it and then deactivate this line. So you know that this line was your original line, and then you can manipulate this one. And then if it turns out that you got to stick with the original line or you want to turn it back on, just reactivate it. And that's the same thing as if you were to do the various methods of commenting out code in scripted language. So select the Santa. And to be politically correct, maybe multiple Santas. So we're going to have a new line that requires another object. Our mouse object in Fusion 2.5 and every predecessor before it came with these conditions. Right? User clicks, repeats, user clicks in a zone, clicks on an object, is mover, mouse cursor displayed, so forth and so on. One thing it doesn't have is if mouse click is done, right? And you can write a convoluted method for doing that just using that object. But with the advent of mobile, we did come up with the multi-touch object, which does work on Windows as well as all the touchscreen platforms. And it comes with this nice little command that says, has a touch been released? And the cool thing about this is it only executes the first loop of the program that a touch has been lifted, or in this case, a mouse click has been let go. So the minute I let go of the mouse, this will trigger once, which is exactly what you want. So what we're going to do is we're going to say fast loop, start loop, and we're going to say do select. Now, for those of you that have no idea what I'm doing, a fast loop is nothing more than running a subroutine. So I've called the fast loop, and then I'm going to declare the next event lines, do select. So what happens is in the main loop, which is what you see here, just like you do any program, it's consistently cycling through these events. But when I get down to this event and it triggers, it's going to pause the main loop and execute the subroutine declared, in this case, do select, as many times as I declare it. And you could do an infinite loop and break out of it however you want to do it. So we're just going to pause and do this one subroutine, which I think will just be one line. And in that line, we're going to add the additional condition, is this object overlapping Santa? So by stretching the object, we've changed the overlap zone when we're stretching the selection box. So I'm able to determine which of the objects it's overlapping. And if it is overlapping, then we're going to go ahead and we're going to change the animation direction to face the selection angle. So on loop select, is selector overlapping Santa Guy, then change animation to direction. Once this loop is over, it's going to return back to the line that called it, in this case line number 9, and continue with any actions left on the line. In this case, we're going to set the scale back to 1, and we're going to position it off screen because we don't need it right now. So position select position, and I'm just going to manually type in -10 and -10, which will put it nice and neatly up here. So if I was to run it, and I select this guy, you can see that he's been selected. Select these guys, they're all selected. Select these guys, they're selected. Now we've got to be able to unselect them, right? So we could say to unselect, insert a new line, and that could be right-click. I mean, it's been a while since I played an RTS, but most RTSs isn't right-click unselect. Do we have a...
I think so, or just selecting anywhere off of them, or like clicking the left click on the mouse anywhere away from them too.
Again, just like Bob Ross, it's your program, Paint a Happy program. I'm going to go ahead and use right button. And what I'll do is I'll say direction, select direction, and I'll set, I'm sorry, the animation direction. Come on. Change animation direction back to not selected. Okay, so some interesting things happened here. In the fast loop, right, I identified all the Santa guys that are overlapped. So when I run an action against Santa, it's only going to change the Santas that have been affected in this condition. Up here, I'm not identifying any Santas, so this command will change all the Santas that are actively in memory. So there you go. There you go. Now we're deselecting objects. Now, I'm sure someone would like me to get them to move, right? So we're going to have to do a little bit more here. We are going to have to...
you can either get them to move or create groups.
I guess we'll do a double click. We'll do a double click. So move guys. Move Santa guys. Okay. So mouse, user clicks, left click, and we'll do a double click. Okay. And for giggles, we should probably have a target for him to walk to. So we'll just go with, I don't know, start with red. Right? And then, of course, we'll need white. Maybe do a couple like that. Copy, paste. Oh, I said paste. 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 Maybe drop it down a little bit. A little bit more. Silver top. Ball. There you go. And one last thing I need to do is set the hotspot to the bottom of the pole. Okay, so this is going to be our movement pole. Wonderful. And when I double click, I'm going to set the position, again, using the old X mouse and Y mouse. We'll test that first. There you go. And then selection still works. Great. Now we're going to do another fast loop. Move Santas. Copy that. Hit it once. And then we're going to say on loop. Move Santas. And then we're going to say, give me all the Santas that have the compare direction to the selected direction. Yes. And then we're going to set their flag on. So a flag is Boolean in Fusion, zeros and ones. We'll set flag 0 to on. Recently in Fusion, we were able to declare flags, so we'll give that flag a name, and we'll call it movement flag. That's irritating me, the capital G. Okay, there you go, set movement flag on. And then we'll say if movement flag is on, For ease of use, we could program our own movement, but I'm going to go ahead and use a built-in movement. Give me a new movement. And for movement 1, we'll go with bouncing ball. And yeah, I think we're good there. And then we'll say movement, select movement, movement 1, and then direction, look in the direction of our friend, the movement pole. And then we need to have another condition. If the player, the Santa, collides with the movement pole, right, then we're going to set its movement back to static, which means no movement at all. And we're going to turn the flag off. Let's see what we get. Let's see what kind of night. Oh, where'd everybody go?
Hey.
That's interesting. And we got echo. Movement flag is on. Very interesting. So the movement flag. See, I accidentally debugging. I accidentally set it to default on. We want it to default off. All right. Yay, our Santas are doing what we wanted them to. So let's get this Santa. Let's isolate him. And it didn't work. So now we got to figure out where our bug is. I am going to, instead of for movement for comparison, I'm going to create a string. I'm going to call it command. And on my selection grid, I'm going to say set string to please move me. And I believe I selected good. And then when we right click, we got to default that back to null. And then here, if multiple string equals please move me, let's see if that selects them. Oh, there we go.
Woohoo! How hard?
So what do you think, Andrew?
How hard would it be to, how you saw what was happening right there, collision detection, like make sure that your Santas don't override?
Okay, so what I've done for you is, the dirty, trashy version of an RTS movement. We occasionally run a really cool contest, a game jam, if you will, a Clickteam. We call them the 20 event. Have you ever heard of them, Brian?
I have not.
I've not heard of the 20 event. So it was a brainchild of mine years ago. And what you do on the 20 event is you have to build an entire game using no more than 20 events.
Oh.
It's actually good fun, good clean American fun, or wherever you're from fun. I'm going to actually show you if I can find it. Resources. So it's under tutorials. So we had one user. How do I want to tell this story? So some of you have made it for Construct 2. We had a user by the name of Ashley Gullen, who actually was a Fusion user and one of our moderators, who was trying to make an RTS in Fusion, and he ran into some perceived roadblocks. It really upset him, and he went off and started Construct 2 because he felt Fusion wasn't capable of doing it.
Shame on you.
And we wish him the best of luck with Construct 2. It's a cool tool. The more people who can program, the better. But what I found funny is when we did a 20 event, and I got to find out where it is. And this was a couple years later, about a year and a half later. We had a user actually make an entire RTS in just 20 events. And I want to find it for you. It's amazing. It's called Beetle. There it is. Beetle Invasion. So we'll download the tutorial real quick. Open, extract. We'll go to the desktop new folder. This is so exciting. We'll open it. And we'll go desktop new folder. There you are. Select object extension. Hopefully we have that. Select object. Oh no. All right. That's a pain in the... So it was written in Fusion 2. That's why we don't have the object. I'll try to grab it real quick. But basically, he wrote an entire RTS that has all the things that you're looking for. So once they hit their navigation point, they reposition themselves. And it works great. Let's see. What was it called? Anybody? Object. Oh, okay. Select object extension. Okay. And there it is. And the released extension form. Okay, so let's go to the released extension form. So, and what I'm doing here is I'm covertly showing you our support systems for folks. Covertly. Select object extension. Advanced search. It's amazing how much you can get done just using search. You'd wish more people would do it. Okay. So extension development. Well, I don't see it. So I guess we'll go back to that previous. When he gets back to his computer, he'll help you out. Okay. Yeah, this has got to be it. See how awesome the form is that helps you?
No doubt.
I'll run Clickteam. I can't find the object myself. All right. We're almost done. Isn't it here? Oh, that's okay. All right, so let's see if this works. Bingo. All right, for those of you who never installed an object manually in Fusion, let's go ahead and stick it in our temporary folder. So temporary, I haven't even taken the time to name it. You go to new folder, desktop. Okay, so you've got data, extensions, and help, right? So if you look at your Fusion 2 install root folder, you'll see that you have the same folders. Data is where we put objects that are used at compile time. So these are the actual objects that inject the code into your compiled version, whereas the extension folders are versions of the file that are used when you're in edit mode. So you need to have one copy of each in both. And some objects, the object can be slightly different depending on its compiled state and its non-compiled state. So all I have to do is this. And then we go back here, retry, and we're in. We're in like Flynn. So here's the game. Now let's make sure that we see the comparison. So here's Andrew's RTS, right? In fact, we'll look at it with this, right? That's Andrew's RTS. Now, mind you, this thing is only 20 events if you remove the comments, right? And my favorite part is when you get to some of the formula. Where is that really good one? Like, this is fun. your acceleration formula.
Oh, good grief.
So if we run it, selection, move to a point, and they'll reposition themselves accordingly. I believe he uses a kind of an array to do it. You got building, economy. We added a mini map.
That's impressive.
So there you go. And you can get that code for free right off the forums, right off the download tutorial section. So here's where he creates his array. Arrays are great fun. And he's using the array so that when he repositions them, he takes in consideration the object's height and width. And then he's created an array that puts them in kind of a grid, and they park themselves once they've reached their destination URL. Now, the only issue is, if you notice, they will overlap. That's the only downside to the engine. They will overlap each other when moving around.
And they developed this in one. They developed this in just one live stream, right?
Oh no, they didn't develop this in a live stream. Right? Sure, sure, Andrew. No. This was this contest was I believe this particular one was a week or so. So this guy worked on this for a week. I mean, he probably would have got it done a lot sooner if he didn't have to be constricted by 20 events. But that was the contest, and he won that year, by the way.
Nice.
Obviously, if you can do that, that's pretty amazing. So I fancy myself pretty good with Fusion and game programming, and then I see something like this, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not that good.
Awesome.
So, anything else today, guys?
This was pretty cool. Do you think you might be interested in talking about probably extending this a little bit more?
Yeah, we can do that. We'll save the file and we'll work on it some more.
Yeah, let's see if we can't build this a little bit more. Because I was just kind of thinking, maybe we can do an RTS because we've already got your Epic Santas already built. That looks great. Maybe do a Cupid, a Turkey, and Uncle Sam.
Oh, you want to do a holiday themed, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever. Anyways, thank you very much for this awesome tutorial tonight. If you're new to the stream, be sure to follow us because we do workshops on every fourth week of the month. So, and Chris has been working with us for quite a while now, doing several workshops like this. And also, if you've ever got any kind of questions, be sure to ask and chat. By all means, before we tune out, does anybody have any questions? And
please ask me a question.
Yeah, and while we're waiting to see if anybody has any questions, you want to talk about your Patreon and everything else?
Sure. So, in addition to Clickteam selling their product, we actually have started our own Patreon, where you get free ClickStore items. What's ClickStore, Chris? Great question. ClickStore is our asset store where people can upload their own examples and items. As you can see here, we have some on sale. If we would go to the sale page, just to give you an idea of, it's a good mix of stuff. Firefly, which is our 3D object set. Here's a cool, easy load system using arrays, and just a bunch of different stuff. This is a really cool isometric engine. But what we do is part of the Patreon. Every month, we add 3 new items that you get completely free. It's usually somewhere between $30 and a $50 value. And to get that, it's the $15 tier. We do the live streams every Friday where you can listen to my old man monotone voice more, if you so choose. And we do all sorts of stuff. In fact, when we're done with whatever we created, this is the cool part, we actually publish it. So if we were to go to our Reactor page, all my Reactor members get this. They get for free. This they get for free. This is free. This is free. This is free. In fact, I actually started this one on a stream with you guys. Get Wrecked, Windy Beard. So these are all examples that are consistently free for members, and then you have the free switch outs every month. So it's kind of like a PlayStation Plus or Xbox Gold, if you will, with streaming. And then the higher tiers, you get personalized tutorial support from Clickteam. So if you need help learning something, you get one-on-one time with Clickteam staff to do it. So that's our Patreon, and we are running a sale on all our software. And if anyone wants some information on that, on the sales and where to get them, instead of blabbing my mouth here, Brian can have you give you my email, and we can figure out where the best deal is for you.
Absolutely.
That's about all I got.
Very cool. All right.
No questions?
Where do you download the fluff?
The fluff?
The
What
fluff.
is the fluff?
I think he's talking about the Santa.
The
Fluff?
Santa? Oh, well, we're going to work on the Santa some more. If you're talking about our little demonstration, we're going to work on that a little bit more.
Oh, the video stream. Okay. Well, I guess I'll just go ahead and roll right into announcements. Again, thank you very much, Chris. For us, to answer your question, our VOD will be available here on this Mixer channel for the next 14 days, but then we will also be uploading our stuff to YouTube, which you can simply search that YouTube / users / Georgia Game Devs. I don't have the link on me right this second, but apparently my other link got deleted. But as Chris mentioned with his Patreon, the Georgia Game Developers Association, we are a nonprofit organization. We also have a Patreon, linked to there, patreon.com / Georgia Game Devs. And as I said, we're a nonprofit organization, so your support will help us with efforts to improve game developers and their community, as well as help to bring better games to light, like this awesome holiday RTS that Chris is building with us. All right, our stream is for gamers looking to learn more about what goes into making their favorite games, and it's also for new designers looking to break into the industry, and it's also for experienced designers looking to improve their skills. At certain levels of our Patreon, members can have access to join our live stream, can't they, Andrew?
Yes.
I think Andrew just went AFK. I see he's muted.
Yes.
Yes, there he is.
It took a while to get the unmute working.
All right, very good. So, yes, with that access, you can have a vocal chat and be able to hop in here, pester our tutorials and developers, and learn more. We also have a cafe press, and as I mention all the time, you can get a t-shirt. It will give you more HP. The coffee mug will give you more intellect and power you through the day. Go buy something. Go buy it right now. That is cafepress.com / GGDA. And then finally, the next Georgia Game Developers meeting in January is on January 9th at the Georgia State University for a look at how to succeed in game jams. So, as always, if you're interested in games and interested in game development, so be sure to follow our Mixer channel and our YouTube channel. And that about does it for me. Again, thank you very much, Chris. Thank you, everybody else, for tuning in tonight. Have a good night.
You guys.
Take care, everybody.